what are like the top 4 steps you would take to kind of get started with ensuring your metadata is on the right track?
Okay. The first thing I would say is that everything you do in the process, from the time you start writing that new song, from the time you start writing that, have a mechanism where you're recording what has been done and by who. So let's
Mhm.
say myself, Monique and Lennon wrote this song. The first piece of metadata is the lyrics. The second piece of metadata we have already is Keith Kirk, Monique, and Lennon Clark, Lennon Shack. That's the second piece of information. Then we may have the title. That's a
Mhm.
third piece. The date it was written, the fourth piece. The copyright line, the fifth piece. So in that on that piece of paper, we have so much metadata already.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Vana Room. We have a very special guest with us today, Keith Kirk. He is a metadata specialist. And if you've listened to any of our previous episodes, Mo, Rob, and I have very, very much talked about metadata and the importance of it and how important it is in the music industry. So Keith is a metadata specialist and an expert. So we brought him on to talk to all things metadata and really dive into how important this is, not in just music, but how it relates to other projects as well.
Mhm.
So I'm really excited to have this conversation. So Keith, I want to kick it over to you to introduce yourself. Give us a little overview of who you are, where you're at, and all that stuff, and how you got to where you are today.
Thank you so much, Lennon and Monique. I'm so glad I'm here to talk about this. Always happy to talk about metadata. And often I say in my speeches, metadata is like watching paint dry. It's very boring.
Yeah,
However, it's
yeah.
so critical to so many things. It's so meaningful to so many things, but you gotta have a passion for it. So I kind of started off my metadata career at Universal Music. I was working at PPL in London. PPL is like the American version of Sound Exchange. And I started working there as a temporary thing, and I got this message through LinkedIn. Hey, we're from Universal. We'd like to see you about a job. Didn't know what it was. Went down. It was very, very relaxed. It was the basically said, we got this job. Do you want to do it? And I was like, yeah. Didn't know what it was because all I know it was Universal. And that was it for
Mhm.
me. Turns out I was one of two metadata support and training analysts, which meant that the universal teams around the world would send us their data before it's being delivered to iTunes and Spotify, all the DSPs, right? And of course, iTunes and Spotify and all these DSPs, they have very, very strict rules and regulations around how metadata is delivered to their platform, right? So that really got me into the world of metadata, and I began, looking at this thing and be like, this thing is really important. And I started talking to other people about it, and when I said the word metadata, they're like, "Huh, what's that?" I have no idea what that is. Even people in the industry did not know what metadata was, and I was like,
Mhm,
"Aha, I see a gap
mhm.
here. I'm doing this thing every day." So I started reading about it more, studying it, and understanding it more, and then, here I am talking to you guys, basically in a nutshell. That's how it all got started. So then I moved on to
So
Sony and 21st Century Fox and BMG and ICE and a bunch of other companies. Oh, go ahead, Monique.
with that being said, Keith, I have a question for you.
Hmm.
So, um, you know, metadata was fairly new because of the 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 evolution into digital distribution for music.
Hmm.
So, where was all this information before? Like, was this
Great.
information always being collected, or like, okay, we have digital music now. Now we have to collect this, but what was happening before then?
Mm.
And where did the term metadata actually come from?
That's a great question. Well, it always existed, right? So, depending on how old you are, if you had records in your house and you turned that record on the back and you saw some writing and information, that was metadata. If you had a cassette, you pulled the
Mm,
leaflet and it would unfold and you saw a bunch of writing on that, more metadata. And then
mm,
the CD, same thing. You pull out the jacket, You read it would usually have like the lyrics and publishing information and all that stuff. That's metadata, and that stuff literally just
Mhm.
transferred from physical to digital, right?
Mhm.
The word metadata, it's always been around. It's been around for centuries, a long time. And the BBC is one of the foremost. Their archives are like crazy, right? They've got metadata on everything, and they got data on everything. The word meta means something that describes itself. So metadata means information about information, right? So you have one set of information, right? You look at one set of information that may be like song title, artist, genre, mood, etc., right? But on its own, that has no
Mhm.
meaning. You have to now have another set of information that contextualizes that first set of information. So, song title, If I Were a Boy, artist name, Beyonce, duration 3 minutes, 6 seconds, label, Columbia, genre, pop. Then that is metadata, right? So, one set of information that
Mhm.
contextualizes and gives meaning to another set of information. Yeah.
Mhm. As new artists are finding their way through what can be a very uh, winding road of all the hands that are involved in making sure that their royalties are collected,
Hmm.
of all the information that makes up metadata, what is the most important? Like, if we tell them, okay, you need to have all this stuff, but absolutely have these things for sure. What are the most important elements of the metadata that should always be there versus the stuff that, okay, it's all right if it's not there, but this has to be there?
In my mind and in my world, all of it is important. Every single piece. But if you don't have all of it, at minimum, you should at least have name, artist name, because legal name and artist name are two different things. Name of song,
Mm,
duration, genre, um, label, publishing information, etc. Right? At least at the
mhm,
basis, you should have that. But even within those little data inputs, there are so many things because you can have name as in Monique, but then Monique could also be DJ Monique or DJ Mo,
mhm,
and we now have to
mhm,
establish that Monique and DJ Mo are the same people because there could be another
mhm,
DJ Mo out there that if the metadata isn't done correctly, the revenues get sent to this other person named DJ Mo, but it's actually you we're talking about. So even in that, you've got
So
to establish. Sorry, yeah.
sorry, are the IPIs used in, are the IPI numbers used in the metadata then instead of just the name?
The IPI numbers are used in the metadata for sure, and they're now introducing
Okay.
another layer, another identifier called the ISNI code, the International Standard Name
Mhm,
Identifier, right? That's becoming
mhm,
a prominent now. So, but a
mhm,
lot of these identifiers get lost in translation, right? And we
mhm,
don't know
Mm.
when the revenue report comes in. There's 100 DJ Mo's, and
mhm,
25 of them we know the IPI numbers for, and the rest we don't. It's a lot of data
mhm,
discrepancies and problems that cause,
mhm,
even with the identifiers, cause issues in remitting the royalties to the right person. So
mhm,
metadata is really about finding who we're talking about. Because again, there's Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, Sean Puffy Combs, Diddy. He's all these people.
mhm.
Love, right? But obviously he's known, so we know it's referring to the same person. What about an indie artist who
Mhm,
has different names? We have to figure out if that's
mhm,
the same person, and oftentimes we don't. And this is what happens
Mhm.
that results in that money going into the black box automatically.
So we've talked about the metadata in another episode. And what we mentioned at that point is that all that metadata is being attached to your ISRC code. So
Mm-hmm.
I have two questions for you. Hopefully I don't load up too much. So my
No.
first question is, how much information can you attach to the ISRC, and like, how do you do it? If I'm a new artist, how do I attach my information? I know I'm okay, so I'm using DistroKid. They're going to do it for me, or CD Baby,
Mm-hmm.
or whoever.
Mm-hmm.
Usually they'll do it. But if I'm my own record label, right? Then I
Mm-hmm.
have to know how to do this myself. I'm still using an aggregator to get my music out from my label as
Yes.
an independent label.
Yes.
So I'm relying on them to do that. Um, so how much information can actually fit in with an ISRC code is my first question. And then my second question is about the UPC.
Mm.
Is there a digital UPC, and is there also metadata in that as well?
Woo, boy, you're going straight for the jugular. Okay, those are some weighty, weighty questions. The
I know,
ISR,
I apologize.
no, that's fine. No, that's fine. The okay, if you're an independent label, you're going to use DistroKid, CD Baby, TuneCore to get your songs to the DSPs, right? Now, what's been happening, what I've been told straight from the horse's mouth, is that when you embed metadata in the actual file, the WAV file, the MP3, the AIFF, and you deliver it through to the DSPs, they strip it out. They take it out.
Mm,
I don't know why, but they
wow,
take it out. Possibly because if
wow.
you're using DistroKid or CD Baby, you're already uploading the metadata on the platform. So it doesn't
Mhm,
there's no need to have the metadata in the file, right? So you would so once you upload the metadata on the platform like DistroKid and you insert your ISRC or you take one of theirs, they will associate the metadata with that ISRC on the back end,
mhm. Okay.
right? And they have systems and
Mhm,
databases that do those things and manage those things, right? So that's how you will do it. Now, this is what I'll say. Every time you're delivering a new piece of music to the DSPs, there's no need to put any metadata in the file because they're going to strip it away anyway, right? Every other time you're sending your file anywhere to a network, to a TV show, to a publisher, to whoever, you want to embed as much metadata as you can into the file. And there's several platforms out there that you can use to embed metadata into your MP3 or WAV, right? Every other time to a radio station, because then they will go and look in to find the ISRC to make a record of that so that, especially in America, most radio stations have to insert the ISRC to report to the PROs. They have to do that by law, right? So that's that. Now the UPC, there are digital UPCs, right? Um, and you can get that from a digital distributor, or you can get them yourself. Now here's what I will say, and Lennon and I spoke about this when we had a conversation.
Yeah. Mhm.
While it's not inherently a bad thing to get to take an ISRC and UPC from the distributor, it is sort of inherently not a great idea to take an ISRC from the distributor or UPC. Here's why. In this world, every single product for trade or sale, right, has to uh, attach a barcode or UPC to their product in order for it to be sold.
Mhm.
Every product. If you look around your house right now in your studio or whatever, and you pick up a product, that more than likely has a barcode on it. Since the song, the MP3, the WAV, the digital file is a digital product, that also has to have a UPC code or barcode. These barcodes identify who owns and manufactures this product. Who owns and manufactures this product. So if you take an ISRC and UPC code from the digital distributor,
Oh. So
okay.
are they putting their information in there as the owner?
So if they, the other thing about products that you have, you go to Walmart or whatever and you buy a product, right? That
Mhm.
the manufacturer of the product, let's say Kellogg's cornflakes. Kellogg's cornflakes has to get a license from GS1. GS1 is the global organization that issues barcodes for products globally. If you have a product in your house and you look at the barcode, it probably came from GS1, right? And Kellogg's cornflakes has to obtain a license to now put barcodes on their products. And embedded in the barcode is information about Kellogg's, the company, its address, where it's located, what it does, and the products. All sorts of information is in that barcode. Now, if you go to the digital distributor, technically, and you take their code and put it on your song, when the digital retailer scans your song, they will not see Monique or Lennon Clark. They will see DistroKid, CD Baby, and TuneCore. And even DistroKid tells you that, one, you can't upload your own UPCs, you have to use theirs. And they also tell you that when you upload theirs, you will see DK UPC. DK UPC. Now that's like saying, again, that's like Kellogg's Cornflakes distributing its product, the song, right? So Kellogg Cornflakes, the artist, distributing the box of Kellogg's Cornflakes, the song, to Walmart, and then Walmart putting their UPC codes on Kellogg's Cornflakes product. That's not right, right? So we have to reroute our minds around how we establish ownership in the digital music universe. Meaning, you have to issue your own ISRCs and your own UPCs for your own songs.
Yeah, but how can you do that if you have to go through an aggregator and they're gonna put their own on there anyway? Like,
No,
especially if they're gonna tell you you can't use your own UPC.
well, firstly, you use an aggregator that allows you to use your own ISRCs and UPCs, right? That's the
Oh,
first
okay,
thing
I
you
got
do.
you.
The
So
se-
so
Mhm.
so bypass the ones that say no.
Yes, essentially, right? And
Okay,
I love
good
DistroKid,
to know.
but they don't allow you to use your own UPCs. And again, if you're an artist just starting out, just putting out your first song, you may not have your own UPCs and ISRCs. It's fine to take one from DistroKid. That's fine. But eventually, you want to get that changed, right? If you're a little bit more established, I would say get your own UPCs and ISRCs and go use a distributor that allows you to upload your own codes. So let
I
me
know ISRC codes are like $100. So how much are
yes.
UPCs?
So let me explain how it works. Yeah. So the ISRC codes, if you're in America, you want to go to usisrc.org and you get 100,000 codes for $95. 100,000. All right.
Mm,
And in the
Wow,
application
that's a lot of
process, you put in
codes.
your name or yes, it is a lot. Your name, your entity's name, your
Yep.
address, your email address, phone number, and that information is now attached to your own ISRC codes, right? Then you go to gs1us.org, gs1us.org, and they have different tiers. So if you want 10 UPC codes, that's 250. I think is 700 is $500, and then up they have different tiers, right? depending on if you're a label, you might want a little
Mhm.
bit more, so you might pay more money for more UPC codes. When you finish use those UPCs,
Mhm.
you can go and get more. But that's the second process.
Um,
So you yep.
okay. No, go ahead. I'll
Oh,
wait.
so yeah, so you get once you get the ISRCs and you get the UPCs. When you fill out the form for the when you
Mhm.
apply for the UPCs as well, they give you a license with that has your name, your
Mhm.
entity name, address, everything that states that these block of codes belong to this entity, Monique LLC or Lennon Clark LLC, right? Owns these codes and are now issuing his or her own codes for his or her own music. But that's just the first step.
Mhm.
Now you have to get an ISRC manager who now codes those songs, who codes the codes together and marries them together, and then they're issued back to you, and then you can use them, right? So that's how that's done.
So, can you clear something else up? Because my understanding is this. If I release, let's say I release an EP, okay? I got 7 songs on an EP. Each of those songs will have an ISRC code,
Mhm,
but the EP is the only thing with a UPC, correct?
mhm. Yes, that's correct. That's correct.
Okay. So I just want to make sure our viewers and our listeners understand that you do not get a UPC for every single track on an album.
It's a
If
good
you release an
clarification.
album or an EP, you put one UPC to each or to that project and an ISRC for each track within. If you release a single, you need an ISRC and a UPC for the single. Correct me if I'm wrong,
Yes.
Keith.
However,
Okay.
and this is me kind of going really deep here. If you have an album of 10 tracks with 10 ISRCs,
Mhm.
you can
Mhm.
also have 10 UPCs,
Really?
right? In the
So
metadata. You can,
explain. Okay.
right? Um, but how it's traditionally done is that one ISRC for a single, one UPC. Five ISRCs for an EP album, one UPC for that EP album. 10 ISRCs for that
Mhm.
album, one UPC for that album. That's how it's done. But there are other ways it can be done also. But we won't go into that because that's just
Mm.
going to confuse people, and I don't want to do that. All right.
I
Okay.
have a few questions.
Yes.
Um, so when you go in and you buy the UPCs and the ISRC codes, and
Yes.
Monique and I have talked about budgeting. This is something that you'll need to put into your budget. If this
Mhm.
is something that you want to invest in heavily and pursue, you'll need to make sure that you budget these expenses into your budget. So let's say you buy what is it, 100,000 UPC codes? Was that you could get for $95?
No, ISRC codes.
ISRC
ISRC.
codes, ISRC
Mhm.
codes. So you buy 100,000 of them, and let's say you use over 10 years, you use, say, 500 of those. Um, and let's say on the ninth year, you update your phone number and you no longer have that phone number. Can you go in and update your phone number that is associated with that and it dynamically update, or how does that work?
Yes. So when you go to the US ISRC agency, you have an account, right? And you can log into that account and
Hmm.
update any information that needs to be updated on their platform, right? But
Okay. So if I
remember,
update my phone number now,
yeah, go
if I
ahead.
update my phone number now on this platform and songs that I released 7 years ago, those phone numbers will get updated in that ISRC code?
No, no. The information that you upload on the platform does not go in the code. It's just
Okay.
associated
Okay.
with the
I see.
code. Yeah, it's
With the code.
associated with the
Mhm.
code.
Got it. I
So if
see.
you
I
released
see.
song 10 years ago and
I
they
see.
want to find the owner, you know, one of the sources of finding the owner would be to go to the ISRC agency or the whatever, right? Um,
Mhm.
and the information will be housed there. You understand?
Okay. I see.
Mhm.
But just a thing on the
I
hundred
see.
thousand
This is a
codes.
lot for new people.
It is a lot. That's why people connect with people like me who get a real kick
Mhm.
out of doing this kind of stuff that's just for other
Mhm.
people. Right? I enjoy
Yes.
this. I get excited about this. I
Yeah.
get excited about making things right. If it's wrong, I want to
Me
correct it.
too.
Let's go on a journey of getting this fixed. That's where I
Right.
thrive,
Yeah,
right? And I
it's
know
amazing.
how to do it. So
Mhm.
if people don't understand this, just connect with me and everything will be explained and everything will be like, you'll be like, oh, right, okay. Because a lot of times when I speak, people are like,
Mhm.
oh, I didn't think about it like that. Oh, I didn't know that's how you do this. I didn't know how you do that. So yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
Mhm.
Um, so you kind of answered what I was going to ask you because on a very much smaller scale, I do what you do for
Mhm.
a country music artist, which is I manage all of his metadata for the songs that he releases. So for somebody who is a new artist or a new record label out there learning all of this for the first time, what should they look for in a metadata specialist? If they're going to bring somebody on board to do what it is that you do, what should they be looking for if they're like,
Hmm.
I don't know how to do this. So what?
It's hard to say what they should be looking for because they don't know what they should be looking for. You don't know.
Hmm.
It's not what I
Mm,
do is not out there. A lot of people ask me, is there a course? Is there a course I can do to become a metadata specialist? Is there a university? Is there a
no.
book? It does not exist.
Mm,
You have
mhm,
to, in order for you to understand what metadata is in the music business and how it applies to the music, the best thing to do is to work with a music label and work in their
mhm,
metadata department, and you will understand. But in terms of, it'll be hard to say what should someone be looking for in a metadata specialist specifically. The what should I say? The general things I would say, someone who is very good at paying attention to detail, very, very good at details, accuracy, data management, Excel spreadsheets, databases, someone who's really good at that. But a lot of the mechanics that go into making that work is very technical stuff. Like, the
mm,
ISRCs, and if you have a song and you have 10 tracks and, or 10 remixes of that song, how each song must have a different ISRC, and then if there's an a cappella version of the song, an instrumental version, and you break up the songs in stacks, all those must have their own ISRCs, and those little details, most people may not be aware of that, but the general stuff like paying attention to detail, working with databases, spreadsheets, and stuff like that, that's what you would look for.
mhm,
Yeah,
mhm.
and an understanding of the
I have a
music
few
business and
questions.
copyright and stuff like that too. Yeah, yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I have a few questions. Okay,
Mhm.
so what would you advise new music artist who wants to kind of get started themselves and really to understand the basics of metadata? Where do you advise they start? Like, do you recommend they start by getting the ISRC codes, entering their metadata there, then going over and creating a UPCs and entering metadata there? Like, what are like the top 4 steps you would take to kind of get started with ensuring your metadata is on the right track?
Okay. The first thing I would say is that everything you do in the process, from the time you start writing that new song, from the time you start writing that, have a mechanism where you're recording what has been done and by who. So if let's say myself, Monique and Lennon wrote this song, the first piece of metadata is the lyrics. The second piece of metadata we have already is Keith Kirk, Monique, and Lennon Clark, Lennon Shack. That's the second piece of information. Then we may have the title. That's a
Mhm.
third piece. The date it was written, the fourth piece. The copyright line, the fifth piece. So in that on that piece of paper, we have so much metadata already, right? Second thing you would do now is to transfer that information onto a spreadsheet where you put name of artist, name of song, duration, um, stuff like that, and fill that in. And you keep that spreadsheet as your database of every single thing you do. And then as you start doing more, you go into the studio now. You'll record, okay, what's the producer name, the mixing engineer's name, the mastering engineer's name, the engineer's name. Then you got session singers and musicians. You record their names and you put all of that information on this sheet because they are what is called
Mhm.
are called contributors, and all contributors
Mhm.
can be paid for being part of this project. So you want to have their name. The mistake a lot of people make is that, oh, yeah, I'll do that later. And then when they're finished, then you now have to remember, oh, who mixed the album again?
Mhm.
What's his name? What was his name? And who played bass? What was his name? No, you want to do it as you're doing this thing. You want to record every single thing. I have a metadata sheet that I can send to you guys that you can give to your students and whoever, that has
Yes.
all the
Awesome.
Yes, that would be
information,
great.
all the data inputs that needs to be put in, and they can look at that. And when they see it, they're going to be like, "Oh my gosh, this is a lot of information." But it will kind of formalize in their head, okay, what I need to be writing down for my metadata.
Mhm.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome because while you were speaking, um, so I'm kind of old school, Keith.
Hmm.
I feel like you and I are on the same page. I
Hmm.
like paper. Okay. There are some apps out there are some apps out there that say, hey, download our app and you can put all your split information into our app. My problem with that is you're relying on that app to keep your information. I like to have my information and I prefer a signature and I'll transfer all the information into my spreadsheet. So one of the things you just gave me a great idea, but you said you have a metadata sheet already, so we'll just roll with that.
Hmm.
But what I was thinking about just now while you were saying that was
Hmm.
I could actually evolve the split sheet to include a lot of that information and just knock out everything at one time and be done with it. I created a Google form for my
Hmm.
artists
Hmm.
and made it like super easy because I'm not in the studio with him. So all he has to do is go to that
Brilliant.
link that I send him and just do do do, and everything already fills into the spreadsheet that I've already got headings for. It needs a little tweaking. I'm not gonna lie, it needs a little tweaking, but because it's a lot of information and creative people are just typically, like you said, not concerned too much with the business side and
Hmm.
they're not organized at all. So that's where people like us come into play. But I think by providing that document, it will help them understand how significant this information is. So I'm looking forward to seeing your metadata sheet and figuring out how I can kind of maybe either use yours completely or combine it with the split sheet that I have and roll with that. But I like that idea for sure. But I like paper. How do you feel about that? Because
Yeah.
there's apps out there. There's Jaxsta for engineers. There's a new one called Music.io. I forgot what the other one is for the split sheets. What are your thoughts on that?
They're great, and I absolutely 100% love technology, but they're limited for me, right? So my
Mhm.
my sheet
Mhm.
is substantial in the amount of information I put in the sheet. So if I
Right.
needed to
Mhm.
use that, I would just transfer information that's necessary on that app. But you said the right thing. You said the key thing. You must be the owner, arbiter, and administrator of your own metadata, because the problem that
Mhm.
happens is that a lot of times we distribute music, we put music here, we put information here, we do this, we upload this there, and we have no idea what it is, because over time you're going to forget.
Mhm.
But if you have this sheet with all
Mhm.
that data, you know exactly what data is out there. And as you said, with Google Forms or Google Doc or whatever it is, you can make it a real time sheet so that if they're in the studio, you can share it with them and they can just input
Mhm.
input information. So that's fantastic. When you see my sheet, though, you're going to want to use my sheet. Believe me, you're going to be like, okay, this is the sheet I need to, because there's things on there that you may not even have thought should be on there, right? So I will definitely
Sure.
send that to you, and you feel free to use it.
Cool. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah,
Appreciate that.
no problem.
I mean, this is a lot of information. I think we could stop here and give people a chance to absorb everything. But Keith, we would love to have you back and
Sure.
pick your
Yes.
brain some more. And yeah, I think this was great. I think this will be really helpful for helping them understand, because we have another episode where we talk about the royalties, and I think maybe we'll update that episode and really break it down for them where their royalties are coming from, and
Yes,
that way they can make the connection
yes,
to
Yeah.
why the metadata is so especially in the digital world. Like, I think it's only going to get, I don't want to say more confusing, but more detailed.
yes,
Yes.
yes.
And you got to understand, you have to have an understanding of this, because technology is going to continue to move forward.
Let me tell you how
Who
detailed.
knows what's going to happen next with music.
Yeah, let me tell you how
Yeah.
detailed they're getting. They want to get so detailed that when you say, "Hey Siri," they want you to be able to say, "Hey Siri, can you tell me what microphone Gladys Knight used in 1960 something?" And Siri will be
Wow.
able to tell you,
Wow.
Gladys Knight used the
Mhm.
Neumann 57H mic, blah blah blah, created by this company, right? But
Mm.
what that does is that
Mhm.
promotes the company that created that mic, which may
Sure.
cause you now to go and purchase that product from that company.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yep,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
That's how
It's not much
detailed.
different from just talking around your phone, and all of a sudden the ad pops up in Amazon or
That's right.
Facebook.
That's right.
Yeah.
So the more detailed metadata, the more valuable everything becomes. The more detail you have about, the more
Mm.
metadata you have, the more valuable things become. Yeah, it's everything.
I have
So
one more question.
sure. Yeah, go
I
ahead.
forgot. I have one more question. Can you, if you have any knowledge on this, because this is something I never talk about, but
Mhm.
I think people should know. So if you have any information on this would be great. Can you talk about how Shazam uses, like, how does that work? Like, what is Shazam picking up the ISRC? I don't know. Do you know how that's
I read
how this matches with the meta?
I read about it. The song has to be in their database, obviously, right? But they literally use a 3 point system thing, right? Now in music, there's something called Schenkerian analysis, right? Where you can take a full symphony classical orchestra piece, full piece, and break it down into 3 notes. 3 notes, right? So let's take Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. Schenkerian
Right.
analysis can analyze that piece and pick up the 3 main notes that make up that entire piece.
Mm,
So I think
that's amazing.
the article I read, they're using that digitally. They're using 3 points of a full song to recognize that full song.
Mm,
It's crazy how
Wow.
they do that.
that's cool.
Wow.
Yeah,
And how fast it
That's
does it, and
cool.
is able to identify a song
so
that's
quickly.
in an ocean of 80 million plus songs, and it can pick
Yes,
up on one in seconds.
yes,
I think we need to get somebody from Shazam on,
yeah.
Lennon,
Yeah.
because I got questions.
Oh, yes. I'm definitely gonna do some digging on that
Yeah,
one.
yeah,
That
I
would be
got
a
questions.
yeah,
very good question.
yeah.
And
But
it's owned by Apple, so we
Apple,
may be able to get somebody from Apple
yeah,
Music. Shazam would
yeah,
be amazing.
Oh, that
yeah,
would be cool.
yeah, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, Keith, thank you so much. I don't. What time is it over there?
It's now 5:45 p.m.
Oh my goodness.
Right,
Okay,
5:45.
Okay.
that's so
It's
crazy.
it's only 9:45 AM for me, so my day is just getting started, and
Wow.
yours is
Ending.
And
ending,
it's
and Monique
lunchtime here.
lunchtime for
Wow.
Monique.
It's lunchtime for
Crazy.
me.
Yeah.
Crazy. It's crazy.
Well, this was awesome, Keith. I hope we can get you on again. And wow,
Um,
this was really good. I learned some things today that I would love to communicate to my students, and
Yes.
obviously our viewers and our subscribers are really. I hope this really helped you guys. So please let us know. Hit us up in the comments. Please contact us at jamvana.com. And Lennon, what you got?
yeah, that's great. Follow us on all the socials. Keith, this is amazing. I
Mm,
definitely want to bring you back. I think
Hmm.
the more that we can learn and pull from you, because you're
Hmm.
in the weeds of it so much
Yeah.
that if you can pull us out and we can pull that information from
Yeah.
you, we can continue perpetuating that information and making sure that people's metadata and help be those echo chambers for you, and then directing people like, yeah, we learned it from this guy, because we all agree that this is very, very, very,
Yeah.
very, very important stuff.
mm,
And like next time, I would like to go into potentially going into how music relates to video and how it goes into movies and why that's important for movies. And then maybe even talking about the metadata that movies have, because I
Hmm.
know you and I
yeah.
talked about the detail that they put into the specific
Yes.
characters within the movie, which is
Yeah.
a whole nother topic, a
A
whole
whole
nother
other topic.
podcast.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So I think we should definitely bring back, I would love to bring Rob on next time as well. Hopefully he's
Hmm.
available. And
Hmm.
then he can kind of relate and understand how the metadata works as well. So thank you so much, Keith. This was amazing. I'm so glad that we were able to connect, and we're definitely going to stay in touch.